Right. Can you guys give me a minute? Or something? Um, sorry, I'm trying to share my screen, so I'm going through some settings. So give me like 2 minutes. Can you guys see my guys cannot see my screen, right? Mm, what's happening? Okay. Can you see my screen now? Oh God. Okay, okay. No problem.
So guys, I think maybe she's having network issues, so we just have to, wait.
It. So a grid is made up of columns. I don't know if anybody, like, you guys have prior knowledge of what a grid is, but I'm just going to go ahead because I'm the only one talking. Uh, yeah, a grid is made up of columns, gutters, and margins. I'm going to explain these terms as we go on. What it helps to do is to provide structure for the layout of the elements on a page. You guys have done UI elements. So when I'm talking about elements, you understand what elements are, element of design, UI elements. So when you are designing, let's say you're designing a landing page, for instance, or a sign-up page, there are elements that will be on the page. Elements like the UI elements like the form field, the text field, the buttons, and the rest of it. So what will help you structure the layout for these elements is the grid system. So according to, like, if I want to read what it says, grid helps designers create cohesive layouts, allowing end users to easily scan and use interfaces. A good grid adapts to various screen sizes and orientation. So the reason why why I'm using my system now, for instance, if I'm using I'm using Zoom. Okay, well, I don't know if some people are signing up with their system, some people are signing up with their phone. But the reason why you can be able to use these multiple devices at once or at different times is because it was designed to adapt to different screen sizes. And what will help you guide as a designer, what will help guide those um decisions or the layout is the grid. And one of the reasons why grid is very important is in responsive layout. So you have your web page that you can open on your desktop screen. You can also open that same web page on your tablet, and you can also open it on your mobile phone, and you don't feel like anything is out of place or anything, because it was well designed to adapt to those devices. So we'll not talk about the elements of a grid. So regardless of any type of grid you are using, we'll still go to the types of grid. The grid is made up of 3 elements. Sorry, 4. I think I made a mistake here. Columns, rows, gutters, and margins. Yeah. Is anybody want to say anything? If you have any question, you can just drop it on the chat box. When I look at it, I'll be able to answer your questions. So we have the columns, rows, gutters, and margins. So if you see the picture that is by the side here, you see that it is labeled. The column are just, okay, I'll still explain it in the next one. So the columns are this rectangle, like this. I'll just call it rectangle for context. This rectangle. So you know what tables are. Tables are made up of rows and columns. So the rows are the vertical lines, why the colors are the vertical lines, why the rows are the horizontal lines. So the same thing with grid. The color is the rectangle. Okay, somebody raise his hand. Somebody want to say something?
Francisca, I think you can continue. He lowered his hand.
Okay. So the columns are the vertical lines that you can see here. That is, the color is in yellow. The gutters are the ones in blue. The rows and the margins are the ones in purple. So the columns take up most of the real estate of the grid. That is the structure of the grid, because they are the bedrock, kind of the major thing. So when you say you want to do grid, first of all, you set up your column first. So elements and content are placed in columns. To adapt to any screen size, the columns are generally defined with percentages rather than fixed values. Well, I might be saying things now you don't understand, but we'll have like a time where we'll do like all this in practical, and I'll teach you how to set up your grid. But it's just for you to have like a context of what each of these elements are. So for example, like I said here, a grid on mobile devices might have 4 columns, and a grid on desktop might have 12 columns. So like I said with the responsive design thing, so if I'm designing a particular web page now, let's say the landing page, and I want it to be responsive on different devices, I might have like a 12-column grid, meaning if I count this thing like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 is for desktop. But when I want to make it a mobile screen, I reduce the number of columns to 4. It to still have all these elements, you still have the margins, you still have the gutter, you still have the row, but the columns itself is the main thing that you have to set up. And for it to be responsive, the number of colors you use for the desktop screen will not be the same number you use for the mobile screen. Hope you guys got that. So the next one is the gutter. So as this gutter is the one marked with blue. So it's the space between the column that separates elements and content from different columns. So one of the things that grids help us to do is to like arrange the layout of your design. So let's say you have like a card. You guys have done UI elements, so you know what a card is. So let's say you have like a card, let's say it's a product card for an e-commerce site. They have like on desktop screen, they have like let's say 6 cards arranged horizontally. So the reason why those cards are not touching each other is because there's space in between them, and those space are even. And what will help the designer guiding them when they are designing is the gutter. So the space between the column is called the gutter. It helps with the whole spacing and everything. Hope you guys get that. So let's say, for example, wider gutters are appropriate for larger screen, whereas smaller gutters are appropriate for smaller screen like mobile. So the amount of gutters in pixel that you use for a mobile desktop screen would definitely not be the same thing to be smaller in a mobile screen. So it's just the responsiveness stuff that we're talking about. So let's move on to the next one, which is margin. So much trying to explain. Okay, so the margin. Okay, if you look at my slide, you see that all my content are starting at a particular point. It's because when I was designing this slide, I used grids for it. I used the column grid for it, and I added margin to it so that it's not hitting the edge of the screen. So if you check your favorite mobile apps or the website that you visit every day, you will see that there's always space between at the left and right hand side of the page. That space there that nothing is filling is the margin. Hope you guys got that. Then rows are wrappers for column. So as you have just like you have the tables where you have the the columns and the rows, is the same thing for grids. So what rows help you with is it helps in the spacing also, but now the spacing is no longer in the horizontal aspect, it's now in the vertical aspect. So if I create do a row grid now and I have like space, let's say I put like 16 pixel, I'll know that anything I'm placing above this thing, that there's space of 16 pixel in all my this is. So for rows now, it's not very important for you to add rows to your grid where you're setting up your grid, but it's also advised that you do, because to also help you, because when you combine the rows and the column, just like you have there, this space in the middle is called the model. So let's use the cards for instance now, the product card for an e-commerce site. So you know when those cards are displayed, and it's like when they say like click on all, when you want to see all the products in a particular page, you see different cards showing different products. There's equal spacing on the by the side and the like top and left hand side of the cards. What helped with that spacing is the rows and the columns that came together to form a model. We'll see an example of this thing with websites that you guys know about as we go on with the class. So if you guys have any question, I feel like you just drop it on the chat box for now. Then so let me check if there's anything before I continue. Okay. So nobody's saying anything. Can you show the page showing the components again? Am I the one that's message just sent to? Okay. Okay, so types of grid system. So there are different types of grid system, but they have like there's three common types. The first one is the column grid. So in this type of grid system, you only have the columns. There's no order, there's no rules, just the columns and the gutters and your margin. So those elements, all those elements that we listed out is there except the road. So like here I said, it involves dividing a page into vertical columns. UI elements and content are then aligned to these columns. So it's just the simple column grid. I think this is the most common of them all. And the next one is the modular grid. So like I said before, the combination of the rows and the columns gives you modules. So you can have a grid that is of this structure. So it said it extends the column grid further by adding rows to it. This intersection of columns and rows made up modules to which the elements and content are aligned. Then the last one is the hierarchical grid. So all these newspaper sites, even all these news sites, there's this, even not even if you don't want to go through that site. Okay, let's say YouTube, when you're using YouTube on the desktop, there's this space where you have the content, what you are watching, and by the side you are seeing other content, then underneath there are other content. The grid system that was used for that kind of site is called the hierarchical grid. They are organized, the content are organized by importance using columns and rows, and modules. The most important elements and pieces of content take up the biggest pieces of grid. Like I use the YouTube as an example. The most important element at that point is the video that you're watching. Every other thing are secondary. So that is why the people that designed YouTube use the hierarchical grid when designing YouTube. So these are the three major types of grid system. So we'll now see examples of this system in real life. So this is an example of a column grid system. So you can see with the cards and the spacing, the gutters and the margin. So you see it has the margin, it has the gutters, it has the columns, which is 4, like 1, 2, 3, 4. It's for a desktop. So this is an example. And if you notice, the gutters are consistent. So you don't have like one having like 16 pixels, the other one have 20. So they are consistent to create uniformity in the design. And the margins too are consistent left and right. Then next one is the modular grid. So this is Behance. If you check Behance now on your desktop, you see that this is how the content are arranged in cards. So modular grid was used here to create those spacing, to create modules that can house the cards in between them. Then it also has the margin. So it has the gutter, it has the column, it has the rows, and it has the margin. And it's also 4 points grid that I use for this. So this is the last one, which is the hierarchical grid. So this is a newspaper site, New York Times. So you can see that I use the hierarchical grid to arrange information on the page. So this first part is where they have the most important.
Yes, then you cannot be lying down and this. You cannot.
Where they have the most important information on the page. So like I use YouTube, for instance, this is another example, a newspaper site. So the benefit of grid. So using a grid benefits both end users and designers alike. So one of the reasons, the major reason as a designer why you should learn how to use grids is that it makes you work faster. If you are working without grids, you will be careful to know, okay, let me align this thing so that the thing will not pass the screen or all those kind of worries. But when you set up your grid, it already created a spacing for you. You just have to follow the grid and it make your work faster and neater. So how it helps the user is that users can easily scan predictable grid-based interface. So like the example of the hierarchical grid now, it helps the users because if the screen was done with, like I said, they use the column grid to design a page like YouTube now, and they do not consider that okay, the video is supposed to take the highest screen size or the space on the page. It will not help with the user experience, to help give the good user experience. So it benefits both the designers and benefits the user. And it also helps to, like, a good grid is easy to adapt to various screen sizes and orientations, like I said before in the beginning. So one of the major reasons why we learn about grids is to help with designing responsive sites. So when I say responsive web design, I just mean like it's adaptable to different screen sizes. There's the desktop, even apart from the mobile, there's even the watch screen, like people that use all this like Apple watches and all of that stuff can access some apps on it, and people design for it too. And the only way that these things are designed and it seems scannable and you still like it when you see those sites is because they use green. So you see the example I used here with the Behance page. So they have the desktop screen by the side, and when they want to adapt it to the mobile screen, the layout changes. So they had like 4 cards arranged horizontally here. On the mobile screen, it became 1 card stacked on top of each other. So hope you guys are following. So while getting to the part where we'll still like practice, okay, I'm seeing some messages on that. Yes, you can get the slides. So, okay, choosing and setting up your grid. So the first step is to choose the right grid for your needs. So depending on what you are designing, like I said, the most popular one like that you can use for any kind of thing you want to design is obviously the column grid. You can also use the column grid to design for a page like what's called in Behance, or a page like YouTube. But if you can, but basically you have to be sure that okay, I want to design a particular page now. What's the perfect grid type and grid system that will fit this particular content that I want to put on this page? So that is the first step. So like I said, for example, hierarchical grids are great for online news platform, like I showed in the example. If the content you need to display is highly variable, consider using a basic column grid or modular grid. Like I've just explained, that's what the document is explaining to. So the next step is spend time setting up your grid. So with Figma, which is the tool that you're going to be learning, that you're going to be using throughout your training and beyond, you can set up your grid before and even after you start designing. But the ideal thing is to set up your grid first before you start designing, to help guide, so that it's not like when you're finished designing, you start setting up grid and you start arranging it based on the grid. Well, if you have done it before you started designing, it will help cover out some of those. It will help you spend less time designing, because it's better you let me just say that. Let's just continue. Once you figure out the type of grid to work with, set up your grid. We're going to have like a session where I'm going to show you guys how to set it up. So yes, always place content within columns and not gutter. So let me go back to this example that has the grid. So if you notice all these examples that you see here, the places where you see the gutters, those blue lines, there's no content there. It helps with the spacing. So place your grid on the columns, not the gutters. So it's like a rule. So if you are starting a particular section, you start from the beginning of a column, not from the beginning of the gutter. So yeah, I think yes, practice time. So I have to highlight. You guys can still see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to show you an example of a responsive design and how it works and how you can use grid to create something like this. So this is a landing page, as you can see, and my grids are turned on, so you can see the grids. So this is a landing page, and this first one now is the desktop screen. This is the tablet, and this is the mobile. Yes, I'll zoom in. I'm just showing everything at once for now. So for the desktop, I used a 12 column grid. So the number of columns here is 12. For the iPad, I reduced it to 6. And for the mobile, I reduced it to 4. So all this content you are seeing on this desktop, I've been able to shrink it into different mobiles, like different devices, like the iPad and the mobile. The same content you see here, the same content that you're seeing in all this other page, but the layout is different to add so that when I'm like, because if I use the same layout I use for the desktop for a mobile screen, we won't be able to access it very well. Everything will be very tiny. Like the fonts or the text will be very tiny. So someone is asking the font I used for my slides. Okay, I used Sora, Sora. Then yeah, so you can see the way I use the grid. So for this particular section now, I see that all this thing are starting from the column. So the next section, this is the mobile, the tablet, the layout changes. Then for the mobile, the layout changes. So I use grid to grid guided me for this design that I did. So now we're going to be setting up this our own grid. Hope everybody's following this, like practice time. And yeah, so you guys know how to use Figma, so you know where to get your frame. So you come here or you just press F on your keyboard. So we're going to start with desktop. You can choose any desktop screen here. Then we're going to also add another screen, which is the tablet. So choose any one there. Then lastly, we're going to add the phone screen. So yeah, any of them then. So for the desktop now, we're going to set the type of grid we're going to be doing now is the column grid system. So on this right panel of your Figma page, you click on this place, layout grid, and press plus. So this is the default grid that I put there. So you have to set your own up. So when you click on this place, you come here and select column. So count the number of columns. So for the desktop, once you use 12. So I've chosen 12. Then this one is just the color of the grid. You can change it to any color that you want, depending on what you want, but that is like insignificant for now. Then the next step is stretch. So the reason why we're going to leave this in a stretch is so that this grid is adaptable. So even if I shrink, I reduce this thing like this, it's adapting to the screen size. So that's why we're using stretch. And this is going to help for responsive design. So that when, even as this is a desktop screen, all desktop don't have the same screen size. So people have larger screen sizes than some. Some laptops are bigger than some. And if you design for desktop, you have to make it responsive. Well, it's not really your job as a designer. You just have to design the basic layout of how it's supposed to be on a desktop screen. Then the developers are going to make it stretch. But you can go the extra mile though and make it responsive. There are ways to like make your designs like as I'm stretching this thing like this, my designs are stretching like that, so that if it's like on a bigger screen, you see how it looks like on a bigger screen. On a smaller desktop screen, you see how it looks like on a smaller desktop screen. So that is the reason why we use stretch here. So let me just take it back to what it was. So now we're going to set up the margin. So the margin is the space, like I said, between like at the edge, left and right side of the page. So depending on how large you want the margin to be, it can be smaller, it can be bigger. There are some pages that the margin is very wide, some of them is quite narrow, but it depends on the designer. So you can just use like and anyhow you want it to be 120. So that means like this page, there's nothing that is going to be at this side of my design. I can reduce it to 100. I can even make it 20. But for desktop, 20 is too small because yes, it's desktop, so it's a very large screen. And this 20 will make the contents to be hitting the edge of the screen. So let's just leave it at 100. Then gutter. So I will advise that when you are choosing grid, like for your or the values you use for all your designs, you use the 8-pixel grid system. So the 8 pixel is just like anything that is the multiple of 8. So for this gutter now, instead of me to use 20 or use 10, I'll use something that can be divisible by 8. I'll use 24 for my gutter. I can even make the margin it's 120, a multiple of 8. 120, that's just for example, so that everything is uniform. So I can also increase it to 32 because it's a desktop screen. So like this now we have set up a column grid system. So if I want to add rows to it, I'll come here again, click on this plus sign here, and here change this one to rows. So you see it has already created modules for me here. So I can put the number of rows that I want. Usually, because I'm not looking to design, even if I want to design a card, like a page like Behance that have those cards, I will make my rows as plenty as possible. So I usually use 1000. Then change this thing to top. My gutter too. And the height, I usually use 8 or 16. So if I make the height of so the height I'm talking about is from here to here. The height is 8. Then the gutter, I reduce it to 8 so that they're equal, or 16. So yeah. Then this offset is if you want to add like an offset at the top, maybe so that to consider if you are going to add a navigation bar and you want your from the top of the screen, you want the navigation bar to be 100 pixel, you can just create the offset so that you know that there's nothing there again. So hope you guys are following this for a desktop screen. Yeah. Then so let's move to the iPad. So it's not like iPad, but the tablet. Tablet is like the general word for it, and create a list. So since we use 12 columns here, so we can use either 6 or use 8 for iPad. I usually just use 6, so it's divided by 2, like by 12, and 12 divided by 2 is 6. So I do the same thing here. Come here, add the column, and my margin will not be the same. So I use 100, I use 120 here, right? I use 120 here. Here I cannot use 120 again, because if I use 120 here, this thing is going to be squashed into the page, and we don't want that. So you reduce it to, let's say 64 is more reasonable now. Then we increase the count to 6. You guys are following. Then the same thing with this one. We leave it as stretch and make the gutter, let's say 16. Let me just put 24 here. The same thing with the rows. So for the rows now, you can still use the same values you use for the desktop here. So it's top 8, 8. Then because you're going to still use navigation bar here, so you can still make the offset 64 or more. Let's just make it 8. Then the last one now is the iPhone, sorry, the phone screen size. So the same thing from here, columns. So I use 4. So either you're using 4 for mobile or 2, whichever one. Then your margin 24. Like I said, you will not use the same amount of margin that you use for the desktop or tablet screen for the mobile. Because if you use, let's say I use 64 for, if I use 64, is there any, I don't think this is nice for a mobile screen. So I increase it back to 64. You can also do 32, depending. Then the gutter 16, because it's a mobile screen. Then the rows, the same thing. So you can have offset here. So let's say this one 48. I think that's too small. It's before. I think that's fine now. So yes, I've set up a simple system for different devices. Does anybody have any question at this point? Okay. You did not see the setup for tab. Okay. Okay, so this is the tablet. So the column, the rows is the same thing. For the columns, I made it 6. I left the type as stretch, the margin 64. The reason why I'm not using 120 as I used for the desktop is because the iPad, I'm sorry, the tablet is a smaller screen size than the desktop. So you want the margin to be smaller than the one you use for desktop, and the gutter smaller also. Okay, how do we know what values to use for columns or rows when designing? Okay, for like I said, for the desktop, usually what people use for desktop is 12. So the number of grids the count that you're going to use for the desktop is 12. The one that you're going to use for the tablet is between 6 and 8. But it's usually you have to use an even number. So you cannot be using 5, cannot be using 7, cannot be using 3. As long as it's an even number. So 12 for desktop, 6 or 8 for tablet, and 4 or 2 for mobile. Then the other values, like the margin, like I said, it's not something that is set on stone. So for the margin now, people might use different margin sizes depending on what they want to design or how they feel like designing it. Sometimes I use 64, depending on what I'm designing. If I'm designing a slide or something that is not a web page, I might not use 120. I might use something smaller. It's just based on what looks right. But I think the benchmark you should use for a desktop screen is 64. 64 should be the lowest. I even feel like 64 is too small. But yeah, let's say you make it 72. Yeah, but if you now reach that, you cannot be having 200 because, like I said, with the one of iPad, there's some things that you see, you cannot be having that kind of screen that all the content are squashed in the middle. So you make it reasonable. So you can just use the values that I'm using now for your own. Then when you get the hang of it and you get accustomed to grid system, you can now start changing the values. Even when I started with the whole UI thing, it was a YouTube video that I watched. I used the same values that the person that was doing the video used, and that's what I was doing until I even found out I was even doing something wrong with my grid. But then, yes, it's just for you to start. Then, as time goes on, through research and experience, you get to know other values that you can use. Why do you choose stop for column? I did not use stop for column. I use stop for row. For column, I said we should use stretch because column is the main thing when you're doing a grid. So I said stretch so that it can be adaptable to different screen sizes. Like I use the example of laptops not being the same size. So my laptop might be smaller than somebody else's laptop, but we can access the same web page, and the design still looks nice on that web page. The person that designed it use a general desktop screen size, but the reason why the thing is adaptable for different desktop sizes is because the column is flexible, is stretching. Then for the rows, why I use stop for the row is because when you're designing, you start from the top. Because if I use there's stretch for the rows though. So you see when I use stretch, everything disappeared. Center, it's only be in the center. Bottom, it will be at the bottom. See that now my offset down went to the bottom. But top, the offset went to top because that's where your navigation bar is. So please, how do we know what's that? Okay. Under rows, why doesn't the count change as the screen size changes? Yeah, because you can actually change it if you want to. Like I can make the count smaller than this. I can make the count smaller than this. Let's say increase the height to 100. Which one am I doing like this? Okay, here. I can increase the height. See, it looks more like the example I used on my slide. So it depends on what you want to use it for. Like I said, the rules are not really that important. but it helps you with the placement. Let's say I want to draw a rectangle here. You see now I'm not checking if it's in line because the grid is already helping me. So I can now count 1, 2, 3, like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So I know that this thing is like this. Duplicate it, take it down like this, duplicate it again. And I can still do the same thing. I can still do the same thing on this screen size that the rows are smaller. So the rows are not really that important. You can still do the same thing. You just, if you want to make it larger like this now, it means that what you want to do, let's say you want to use it for your cards, you want it to be very obvious like that, like this type of rectangles I'm keeping on it now. So for this particular place now, depending on what I want to design, if I'm just putting the grid so that it's for my text, like so if I'm putting a text now, I know that okay, the spacing from here to here, or let's even use an example of a form field. So now this one stopped here and I start this one here. Since I know that this thing is 8, this one is 8, this one is 8. So 8 times 3 is 24. I already know that the spacing from here to here is 24 without even checking it. And now I've checked it and it's 24. So you can make it flexible. I just use 1000 because I want it to fill up the screen so that I can be able to use it for different kind of layouts that I want to use it for. Majorly, sometimes I even don't use rows. I don't add rows to my grid. I make the major one that you have to put is the column. The rows are not really that important, but you can use it so that the same way you can be able to calculate the spacing with the column, you can use it to calculate the spacing with the rows without even measuring anything. So like this now, I already know that this from all this space in here is 24, 24. So you're seeing it. I did not even measure anything. That's what grid help you with. You say you did not see offset. The offset is for the rows. So the offset is just the spacing from the top of the screen to where the grid will start. So if I reduce this now to 10, see the offset is small. If I increase it to 40, it's increasing like that. So like I said, the offset is not really important. You can leave it at 0. But the reason why I use offset sometimes is for my navigation bar. So if I'm going to use a navigation bar here, okay, for instance, this page now this particular example, I did not use offset here. But if I want to add the offset, so you see the spacing, let me increase this one to 100. So you can see it has given that space that the navigation is on. So you can see the reason why it's there. It's empty for your mobile and your iPad screen. So please, some designer use center instead of stretch. Does that mean it won't be responsive? It will. Is it for the center? Is it for the? Is it for the column or for the row? So let's try it here. Let's change this into center. Are you seeing how it looks on center? So now on this center, I have to start coming here to specify the width of my this 48. So it means that everything I'm doing is going to be in center. You see that it's not stretching, it's not responsive. But it all depends on what they are using it for. But for a normal desktop web page design, it's better you use stretch for responsiveness. I do not, okay, this person is asking why do I choose stop for column? I use stretch for column, not stop. So let's see what the gutter does. The gutter is the space between each column. So this is a column, this is a column. This space that you're seeing, this white space that you're seeing here is the gutter. It helps with the spacing. Like I use with these rectangles that I drew here. So now I don't know what the size of these rectangles are. I just know that the spacing between here to here is 24 because we set our gutter to 24. Hope you understand now. I should show the mobile setup again. Okay, I'll do that. Also, wasn't able to edit the height in column. The height. Because of the, what is, I don't understand height in column. And 1000 is not the standard number for count, like I said. It depends on what you want to design. I use 1000 because if I set this number to like 100 with everything there, and let me just say 20, you see that the thing has cut short. So 1000 means that there's no matter how this thing is going to long and reach, you'll still be able to see everything. So if you have reached this place now and thing has already stopped, this is 100, change it back to 1000. So you see it's longer. I can continue stretching it so it fills up the space. Hope you understand now. Sorry, Samuel, I hope you asked the question again. Samuel. Is there a default size for margin for each of the devices? No, there is no default size. There's just a range of sizes that is reasonable for each screen size. So for mobile, I said you can start, some people use 16, some people use 24, some people use 32. But I think 16 to 32 is a good range for mobile. For tablets, 64 to like let's say 100 is a good size for mobile for iPad. So there's no specific, it's just a range that is reasonable for each screen size. So why do you choose why do I choose top for? Because when you're designing, you design from the top, you don't design from the bottom. So you have to start, like when I reduce this thing now to 24, the count to 24, you saw that the thing stopped short. So if I change this top now to bottom, to start from the bottom, if I change it to center, it will be at the center of this thing. But top is where you start designing from. So it's advisable you start from the top. You set up your layout grid first before designing. Like I said when I was still on the slide, you have to, it's ideal for you to set it up first so that it guides your design. It's not after you're done designing that you start setting up your layout and start making sure your layout, so your design aligns with the grid that you just set up. So it's better you do the layout grid first, set up your layout for your grid first before designing. I'll do the setup for mobile again. Why is the screen you're already working on longer than the one you created for the practice? The reason why it's longer is because the content is, I already have content. So now this is an empty screen. I don't know where it's going to read. So even on your phone, if you check your phone, on your mobile phone, depending on the content on a particular web page, that is the length of the web page. So if the web page just have the hero section, content and footer, it will be short. If it has longer content and more content, it will be longer. So is this the length of the design or the mobile screen or any of them, depending on the content. So for this one that we're just using as practice, there's no content here, so it can be shorter. This is the normal, okay, the way it was when we brought it out from the frame. was how the normal, when your phone size, let's say this is an iPhone 13 mini. So an iPhone 13 now, that way is going to be when you have not scrolled up. That is how the length was. Hope you understand then. How do you stretch it? When you are designing, you don't stretch your design like this. You can, if you want to add more content to it, you stretch it from the bottom to add more content, like you can see here. And so that it doesn't, there are sometimes that when you are trying to stretch your design, some of your components is stretching with it. So to avoid that, you hold command for Mac. You can hold control for Windows and stretch your screen. How can you make the desktop screen adjustable to different screen size? Like I said, the desktop screen, you just make it let's change this thing back to, okay, this is stretch. Yeah, the stretch. So if you notice that I'm stretching this thing, the margin still remains the same. The only thing that is changing is the width of the column to adapt to different screen size. So that's how we do that. How do I practice mine on my laptop? You come to your Figma. When you open a blank Figma file, you click on frame or press F on your keyboard and choose any of these frame sizes. So you can choose anyone for desktop, choose anyone for tablet, choose anyone for phone, and you can practice with it. Be sure the setup for mobile again. I will do that. The desktop frame height is long. Is doesn't mean you group them together. No, I did not. I stretched it. I increased the height. This was not how it was. I think it was 1020, 1024. So this is how, like, if your screen size, if your laptop screen size is this size, this size is going to be with when you have not scrolled up. So that's what it means. This does some designer use center have explain this. Why am I seeing questions that I've seen before? No, it's
Francisca,
not.
can you hear
Eh?
me?
I can hear
Can you hear
you.
me?
Yeah.
So please, you can skip the questions that you have answered. Just skip them
All
and move
right.
on with next question.
Okay. So I think I'm done with the question. So let me do the setup for mobile again. I'll remove the grid that we've put there before. So yeah. So layout grid, add, click on the plus sign. I may change it to rows. Sorry, start with column. Like I said, the counts for mobile 4 or 2. So let's use 2. Add margin 24. So it can be 16, it can be 24, it can be 32, depending on the designer. Then gutter 16. So you can increase this one to 4. Easy to reduce it to 2, whichever one that you want. Then it's still in stretch. Then the rows, like I said, you can make it 22,000 or 200, anything you want. Reduce it to top, change it to top. this height thing, you can increase it to 16, but let it just be a multiple of 8. So yes, for those that are asking, this is it. So for tablets or phone that usually have their navigation bars down, it makes sense to switch the settings from top to right. Yes, you can do that. Yeah, that is for bottom navigation. But the problem with that kind of design is that there are some screens that you'll be designing for a mobile app that is long, that the content are longer. You have to increase the length of your mobile. You have to increase the length of the screen to accommodate more content. And let's say that your navigation bar is somewhere at this part, because that is where the navigation bar is going to stay at the bottom of the screen, right? So it's going to be somewhere here. So your offset that you put at the bottom won't really work. Like I said, it's not a must that you put offset all the time. You only put it when necessary. I did not add the offset. Yes. So for the offset, let's make it 32. I don't think there's anything that is as small as that, so we can increase it to 48. So yeah. So I think that's that for the questions and answer. So I wanted us to like do a simple design. I don't know if it's possible to do a simple card design. And okay, let's just go ahead with it very fast. So I don't know what's the time. It's already after 9. Okay, so for a normal product card, let's just do it very, very simple. Add space here. So this is 12 grid. So how many cards can enter a 12 grid and like a 12 column grid? So we can do 4, we can do 3. So if it's 4 cards, we take 1, 2, 3. So 12 divided by 3 is 4. So we have 4 cards. What I'm doing is I'm duplicating the rectangles. So now let me round the corners. So yeah, this is where our images are going to be. So let's have the title of the card. Let's say this is like what are we going to, let's just say HP laptop. So that because this is the title of the card or the name of the product. So I'm trying to design a product card and show how it can be used on different screen sizes. So let's increase this to 24. Make it medium. Then add the price. Let's say the price is 1,000 now, 10,000 now. So we can make the price smaller and bolder. Then we can now have like a button here. Add to cart. Mm, okay, so if you add an image to this thing, so I don't know if you guys know that there's something called plugins on Figma that can help you work faster also. So I'm going to add a random image to this. But let me just look for laptop. Mm, yeah, let's look for something more. To group this, so I'm going to add this into frame. And this is not like how a standard card is, or like a standard product card. I did not add um I did not add the ratings and all those things to it. But just for the sake of this class, we're just doing it for the sake of this class. So let me just Control C, paste to replace. So this is how these cards are arranged on mobile. So on desktop. So for the iPad, the tablet screen, if you bring one of the cards here. So if this one is divided into four, like there are four cards on one line, for the iPad, you automatically know that the cards are going to be two cards in one line. So now I'm adjusting my card so that duplicated. So yeah, so this is for iPad. Now for the phone. So this is four cards in one row, two cards in one row for the tablet. So for the mobile, you automatically know that it's only one card that can be able to enter here. So when you place the card inside, you adjust it. Make sure that it doesn't pass the margin. So usually on mobile, we usually reduce the size of the text. So here is going to be 20, because if you're doing responsive design, so what I'm teaching you here is how to set up your grid though. But I'm not teaching you how to like scale up like and scale down designs when you're doing responsiveness. But the font size you're going to use for desktop is not the same font size you're going to use for your mobile. So now I'm going to change this one to 20 because it's mobile screen. Change this one to like 16 because the baseline for mobile screen sizes is usually around that range, 16. Some people use 14. Yeah, so yeah, there you have it. Let me turn off my grid now. So yeah, this is how to create a responsive design, at least the basics. So this desktop on tablets and on mobile. So yeah, that's it. Is there anybody that have a question? Can you use the same font for laptop and tablet? It depends, but yes, it's better to you can use, depends on your own typography skill. Okay, let me show you from this design that I did. So this is this is a desktop screen. So I use the size here is 56 on iPad, sorry, tablet is 48, on mobile is 36. All these things are heading fonts or be like in my own scale, in my own typography scale. This is they're all they're headings, yeah, textile, heading textile, but it's different for different screen sizes. For the listen body text now, for desktop I use 16. For iPad tablets I use 16 also, but for mobile I use 14. So like I said, there are some points that mobile and sorry desktop and tablets will have the same font sizes, but for the mobile it has to reduce. We can use 16 for body text. It depends on, I think when you get to that stage in this whole training program that you're doing now, you will learn better, but at least you get the idea of how to design a responsive design. How did you make the sides round? Okay, on the when I clicked on the image, I just changed. So I did not want the down part to be round also. So I clicked on mixed here. So let me use it on a fresh rectangle and show you. So I don't want, if I want all the edges to be rounded, I'll just put the value here, 20. All of them will be the same size. But if I want one part or two parts or three to be round and the other one is in sharp, then I'll come to this place and make the other one 0, 0. So you can see. So hope that explains. If there's no other question, then let's move to your tax for. I'll just explain it. I think later on you get like the tax. So this is the tax. I'll just explain. It's even though it's looking like it's long, it's simple. So because Okay, the task is design a mini homepage for a new e-commerce website that sells clothing for women. Use a colon grid system to create a responsive layout for desktop, tablet, and mobile device. And the requirement is that you have the header. So you can go to any e-commerce site that you know and see how they design their header. So that's header, that place that I have you have the offsets. That is the header part. The navigation, top navigation bar. So you have to have the top navigation bar, and that top navigation bar contains the logo. You don't need to design anything for me. You can just, if you choose to name, you can choose to name your e-commerce site anything. Anything you name it, just put the text there, write it there, and maybe change the color. So you can use any color of your choice, but just stick to one color. Make your background white, make your text black, and have your CTA, that's your buttons, in one color. You can choose any color that you want. Just make sure that you have done design principles. So make sure that your design is following the design principle. Then the next thing is to design the main content area. And that main content area should showcase a few featured products with images, titles, and prices in form of cards, just like we use that example here. So we are designing a standard product card for me, but you are going to make it responsive in these three different devices. Hope that is understandable. How do you create add to cart frame? I didn't ask you to create add to cart frame. I just said design one page, and that is a home page. And you're not supposed to, I don't want you to design the whole home page. What I told you to do is to design a navigation bar, the top navigation bar, and the main content area is going to contain the cards. That is all. You can have like a heading for the card. Let's say you want to name it all products, anything, but is a e-commerce website that sells women clothing. So you're supposed to have dresses, skirts, female trousers, and all those things. That is all I ask. So you can have as much cards as you want to. You can have 10, you can have 8, you can have 16. I just want to see cards. That is all. And I want to see that it's responsive for tablet and mobile also. If does anybody have a question? Someone is asking, can we do this task with the mobile phone? You have to design on Figma. If your phone can access Figma, you do the task, then fine. But if not, the system is better and it's going to make it easier for you. So you are going to be submitting a Figma link. So you are doing your design on Figma, submitting a Figma link. So I know that people are just starting. So this is just like a very simple. I just want to see that you understand how to set up your grid, and make sure you use your grid though, because I will see people, I will know the people that use grid and people that do not use their grid. Okay, how did I create add to cart frame? Do you mean the button? Oh, the button. Okay, let me just, even though it's not part of the class, but I added the text I want. Let's say, let me call it button. Then I made it added auto layout to it. You can also use this, then put a rectangle, draw a rectangle, and place your text on top of it. Make it center align it, then change the color. Change the color of the text to white or contrast. Then you can round the edges like we did, or leave it the way it is. You can round the edges to any type that you want. So if you want this very rounded edges, if you want the slight one that I did, you put the value So this is a way. Then you now frame your button. Frame selection. Then the way that I did mine, which is faster, is that I put the text, then press Shift A on my keyboard. This is to add auto layout to it. So here I add fill and change the color to white. The reason why this auto layout on is better is because you can do the adjustment. If you just control into the center, as you are shifting it, it's still at the center. You can increase the height from here. Then round the corners also. So now I don't need to now make it a frame again because it's already in a frame. So you can see it. And it's also helpful for responsiveness. For this one now, if I'm increasing, it's only the rectangle that will be increasing. I have to be doing it manually. Okay, the plugin is Unsplash. Okay, I think there's no other. When is submission? Okay, your coordinator will contact you. I don't know. Your coordinator will communicate that. You mean only landing pages for? I did not say landing pages. I said homepage, and I told you what I want to see on the homepage. But if you want to add anything to your homepage, you can add. But what I want to see on the homepage should be there. That is it.
So, Francisca, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I think some people have their hands raised. Concern and Mary. So I would have to unmute Concern so that she asks her questions.
Okay.
Concern.
Hello, good
You
evening.
can unmute yourself.
Good
Yeah.
evening.
Okay, my little confusion is on the types of grid line where you said the hierarchy and the rest of them. Then apart from it, there was something you did when you were actually showing the practical side. The iPhone 13 grid system. I noticed that when you're actually trying to expand the iPhone 13 table page
Yeah.
or layer, the roll is not actually moving with it. Why?
Because it's not stretched like this thing was not stretched. Let me duplicate it and remove this thing and turn on the grid. So the other one is stretched. So if I make this one stretch, I'm not even seeing it again. So I don't know where it is. Yeah. But if it was showing, when you are adjusting it, it's supposed to be adjusting it. But for web design, the most important things are the width, not the height. The height just depends on how long the content that is on your screen is. So that's why we change it to top, not stretch. And why I told you why I use this number like this much, like count, is so that if no matter how I'm going to stretch or increase the height of this thing, my rows is still showing. But if I reduce it to 100, it will stop somewhere. Hope you understand.
Okay, yes, I understand.
All right.
Elijah Akimbade, your mic is on mute. I don't know why that is like that, but I think I muted everybody. I don't know. Okay, you're on mute. Don't worry. I think it's from my end. The next person should be Kinwe Mary. Samuel, after Kinwe is done, please unmute yourself and do that. Kinwe, unmute yourself and.
Good evening.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening. No.
Good evening.
Okay. When you were teaching, you said something about plugin, right?
Yeah.
And you brought
I can hear you. Yeah, go on.
Okay, and you brought these laptops from the plugin, right?
Yes.
Okay, I discovered that I don't know if plugins has stages, I don't know. But each time I go to plugins, only things they display there is things that has black colors. As in they have black and white colors. So I was surprised you bringing out this from plugins.
Okay.
Or you went to website.
The thing is that there are different plugins depending on what you want to use it for. You
Oh,
need plugins. But as at now, as you are just starting, you don't really know much of like the plugins that are available. You have not started designing like extensively. So you start from small. The plugins that I have will be more than the ones that you have because I've been designing for a long time and I've been trying out stuff. So I
yeah.
just use one as an example. This plugin is for images. So instead of there's an Unsplash web page. So I can go to their web page now and look for and search for laptop and I'll get I have to download it, then upload it to Figma. But what this plugin helps me do is that I'm still on Figma and I can be able to search. It's the same thing I will see on their web page as I will see there. It's just a plugin. There's also Pexels. That one too is for images. Then for icons, there's Iconify, there's flat icons, there's different. So depending on what you want to use it for, as time goes on, you'll be learning more about different plugins and you start learning how to use them in your design and how it can help you design faster, more efficiently. But for this one, the plugin I just used because I wanted an image and I wanted it fast. So I used Unsplash plugin. So you can, if you want to find this plugin, just come to this place that you see plugin, search Unsplash on your own page. It's already showing me for you on my own page because I already have it. But if I want to add it, it will now show me from community now. I can now add anyone that I want from here. Hope you understand.
Yes.
So even if
So
you name of any plugin, let's say I search for icons, they will show me different icons. So I can choose anyone. If it doesn't work for me, I look for another one. You
um,
understand?
yeah. So like the assignment you gave to us, you get as for example, now you said we should design a website where they sell clothes, right?
Yes.
Okay. My question now is can we get those materials from the plugins, or we should someone as in someone should go we should screenshot, or let me say download it and start using it for the work.
And you can do that,
Okay.
but it's better you just use a page,
Okay.
a website that will give you high resolution images, like very clear images. And this on Splash or Pexel, this is Pexel. Let me type it here so you see it.
Okay. So you mean when I go to my plugins, I can type
You can,
anything and I will see it?
yes. If you know the exact name of of that plugin, you can search for it. If you don't know, you can just search for a general name. So like you don't know what's in Pexel or on Splash, you can just search image. Then you can now see different ones. You can now start. This one is now based on luck. But if you know the exact one, you search for it and you find it, then you just click on run. So any of this one, I can just click on run. And once it runs, like I search for female clothing, they'll show me clothes that women are wearing now. I'll just and how to put it. If I click on like let me open that on Splash again. So if I search for female clothing, click on search. So they'll bring out clothes. That particular rectangle, I want that cloth to enter. I'll just I'll select it first, then click on the image, and automatically it enters the frame. So you see how
Okay.
fast it is. Or you can just be specific and say dress
Okay. Okay.
and add it like
Thank you.
that. You're welcome.
Yeah. God bless you.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Francisca. Chinwe, can you mute yourself back? Yeah, so no hands are raised anymore, and it means we do not have any questions. Thank you, Francisca, once again for the class. It was such an interesting one. I got to learn. It's like I'm even considering joining the product design guys. Maybe after this program, I might end up being a product designer and not a developer anymore. Thanks to you and Design Goddess. So we'll be ending the class, and the recordings for the session will be sent to everyone, just like we all know. And that's that for that. Yeah.
Hi.
So guys, you can start leaving the call, and do well to practice and also learn on your own. If you have questions, you can reach out to Francisca, or first of all, reach out to your fellow participants. First of all, reach out to Francisca later on the Discord